Now, when we look at awards that are given out, all over the world when it comes to the arts, every country has got their own awards where you have to be a citizen of that particular country to actually win that award. Whereas America is the only country in the world that, that when it comes to the Oscars, Emmys, Tonys, Grammys, you can be a citizen of any part of the world and you don't have to prove anything about your citizenship or your residency, and you can win an award, which shows how secure Americans are in general with their art. And also, when it comes to artists in America, for them, the world is their playground.
Hey, Nick Nanton here, and thanks for tuning in to Now to Next. I want to make sure you don't miss a single episode of this show on YouTube. So before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, just go into your settings and switch on notifications. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, Nick Nanton here, and I'm super excited to be here with Grammy Award-winning composer Ricky Kej. I will do a introduction of him in a second, but because you can already see him and it's just always sort of awkward, Ricky, how's it going?
Going good, and thank you for making it less awkward. Otherwise, I would have just had to be staring into the camera while you're introducing me. Thank you so much.
No worries. And I want to make sure, I think I'm saying your last name correctly, but I'm probably not. How do I say it the right way?
So the right way is how you pronounce a bird cage, C-A-G-E, just like how you would say Nicolas Cage.
Okay. Good deal. Ricky Kej it is. All right, so let me give you a quick bio, everybody. Really impressive background. Ricky Kej is a Grammy Award-winning Indian music composer who has performed in over 30 countries, including at the United Nations headquarters in New York and Geneva. He is also a renowned environmentalist and has been named United Nations Global Humanitarian Artist. Ricky won a Grammy at the 57th Annual Grammy Awards in 2015 for his album Winds of Samsara. I was actually at that Grammys, I'll tell you. Which was in the Best New Age Album category. The album also debuted at #1 on the U.S. Billboard New Age Album chart in August 2014. His incredible body of work includes 17 studio albums, over 3,500 commercials, and 4 feature films. Now Ricky has a new album out titled Divine Tides, which was produced in collaboration with another legend, 5-time Grammy Award winner Stewart Copeland of the band The Police, which you've probably heard of. If you haven't, we need to start in a different place. The album is a tribute to the magnificence of our natural world, and it features many acclaimed artists from around the world. Ricky, awesome to have you. And fun fact, the first Grammys I ever went to was the opening was the reuniting of The Police. So I had never seen them. Obviously, they had been on quite a hiatus. And I will be honest with you, I really didn't understand The Police or Sting until I didn't really understand The Police or Sting until I saw them live. I just was blown away by Sting's voice. It was like, it was mind blowing. And I had never heard, I'll tell you, the only other voice I feel like I've heard that's that crisp is Alison Krauss. And I've just been a huge fan of hers my entire life. And I heard Sting, and I go, oh, I get it now. There's certain bands I just feel like you gotta, I don't know, maybe I'm just a slow learner, but I didn't get it. And then I saw Sting with a symphonic orchestra, which was mind-blowing as well. I will also, again, I'll admit all my warts in front of the audience here, and then we'll learn some good things about you. But I also didn't get U2. I liked Achtung Baby. It came out when I was in middle school. I thought, One was a killer song, but I didn't really get the whole deal. And then I saw them at the Grammys, and I go, oh, now I get this. So a few of my warts, everyone can see those. For the most part, the rest of my musical taste is pretty spot on, I think. But Ricky, you started out, so you're from India. Well, you're from North Carolina. And so how did you get to North Carolina and then to India? Give us that story.
So my father is a doctor, and he was a doctor in North Carolina. He immigrated to America when he just passed out of medical college. And so he was a doctor over there for about 35 years. And I was born in America. And at that particular point of time, there was no plans to actually move back to India for my parents. So that's why I got a Western name, Ricky, and not a complicated Indian name, because my father has a very complicated Indian name. So he did not want me to suffer the same consequences of having that kind of a name. So I was in America for about 8 years, and I lived in this really small town in North Carolina, which is on the border with Virginia. It's called Roanoke Rapids. And so it was sort of like in the middle of nowhere, very small town. And my father was a very popular doctor over there. And we had a lot of wooded areas around our home. So we would have a lot of creepy crawly animals and dangerous animals walking into our home. So it was a great life. And then when I was 8 years old, that's when my family decided to move back to India. So ever since then, I've been in India.
So tell me about that. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm from my parents and my family and I was born in the Caribbean islands and Barbados. And it's interesting when you are an outsider in a different country. I think it's all about, so much about life is about perception. So I'm not going to go too deep there. But I think we have these perceptions of how we fit in and how we belong. It would be interesting to me for you, how did you feel like you fit in North Carolina? And then did you also maybe feel like when you moved to India, like you didn't quite fit in there? Like that seems to be a possibility. So tell me about those two places and how it was growing up.
Actually, to be honest, I was very too young. I was very young to actually have the perception of a difference between America and India. But I do remember that the only difficulties I faced was that when I reached India and I had to get into second grade, school in India. The thing is that I had to learn Indian history instead of American history. And in India, every kid has to learn two languages and sometimes three languages rather than just English. So I found it very difficult to pick up a second language, and I still find it difficult. So these were the actual difficulties. But about being an outsider in America, to be really honest, when my parents talk to me about that, they have only good things to say because my father was very welcome in America. He felt very, very welcome in America, and in fact, he was a very successful doctor over there. And he would tell me that that people were always very nice to him. In fact, the other doctors in the same town were all very nice to him, even though he was competing with them. And he saw some success very quickly. So he felt very welcome. In fact, I can tell you one small story that happened. That when I was born in 1981, and that was pretty much when Ronald Reagan became president of America. And my dad, what he did was that, that was the exact time when, he got his passport as an American citizen. And, so he was feeling really proud of being an American. And he sent a letter to President Ronald Reagan saying that, that I've been in America for this many years and I just had a son. And, so I just wanted to write to you. And apparently he got written back by Ronald Reagan in his own handwriting. In just about in just I think a couple of months he got a letter congratulating him and with a photograph with the signature and so that really boosted him quite a lot, my dad.
That's cool. Well, look, I think there are there's pockets of terror all over the world, and America is certainly not immune to that. There are bullies everywhere. There's certainly way more racism than there should be. There's way more sexism than there should be. There's all these. But I really feel like most of the people that I meet, other than, I had a few bullies in school. I think everyone did. If you didn't, you didn't get a normal human experience because unfortunately there's just a small percentage. But for most people who I meet with and speak with, these grand perceptions are rarely true. So for me, I could just see this narrative. That's why I brought up of maybe you didn't fit in too well here. And then maybe when you move to India, they're like, oh, that's the kid who thinks he's Indian, but he's from America. These things. And there's probably one or two little kids in every school that would do that to somebody. But for the most part, what a great thing that your family was able to come here. Your father was able to build a respected career, and he wrote to the president and got something back. I truly believe that is what most of America really is. And I wish we'd hear more about that narrative. I think, again, in many times in life, what you look for is what you find as well. I know that's not always true. Trouble can find you when you're just minding your own business, but there's an awful lot of times when you're looking for it that you will find negativity, whatever else you're looking for.
No, actually, to add to I just wanted to quickly add something to that.
Sure,
sorry for interrupting you, but the thing is that what you said is absolutely true. And even though I do acknowledge that there are problems that need solving and there are huge systemic problems that need addressing, I'd like to say something about America, being sort of like an outsider right now because I've lived in India for almost all my life. Now, when we look at awards that are given out, all over the world when it comes to the arts, in Canada, there is the Juno Award. And to win the Juno Award, you have to be a resident of Canada or a Canadian citizen. And Australia's got the ARIA Awards, similar, and South Africa's got the SAMA Awards, India's got the JIMA Awards. Every country has got their own awards where you have to be a citizen of that particular country to actually win that award. Whereas America is the only country in the world that, that when it comes to the Oscars, Emmys, Tonys, Grammys, you can be a citizen of any part of the world, and you don't have to prove anything about your citizenship or your residency, and you can win an award, which shows how secure Americans are in general with their art. And also, when it comes to artists in America, for them, the world is their playground and not just their own country. So that is what I even said when I accepted my Grammy Award. That is exactly what I said on stage. I said that it's only in America that an Indian and my partner who won the Grammy along with me, a South African, can actually win the biggest music award at their biggest musical night. So I feel that that Americans, even though I acknowledge that there are problems, but Americans do not celebrate their unity and diversity as much as they should actually.
I absolutely love it. All right, so most of your life you wanted to be a musician. Your parents weren't thrilled with that choice, it sounds like, or they at least wanted you to do something different. So you went to dental school. So tell me about this. I mean, did you go all the way through and you could have gone right out and started working on teeth, or tell me about that?
So it's in our 12th grade in India that we have to make a very strong decision as to what we want to do for the rest of our lives. So I had made a very strong decision that I'm going to be a musician for the rest of my life, and music is not just going to be a hobby or an evening thing. It's going to be my bread and butter. It's going to be my profession, and I want to do music till the day I die. So with that same energy, I went to my dad, who's a third generation doctor and an Indian parent. And those of you who know Indian parents, that you cannot say no to your Indian parent. So I went to my father and I told him that, Dad, I want to be a musician. And he just kept staring at me like, he was sort of waiting for the punchline. And that's when I told him that, no, Dad, I really want to be a professional musician. And he said that, what do you mean? Music is not a profession. You have to be something else, and then you can do music in the evenings. So then after a lot of fighting with my father, a lot of drama at home, it was severe drama. I reached a compromise with my father that I would finish off a degree in dental surgery. And once I finish off the degree, my life is my own, and he would never question me again for the rest of my life. So that's exactly what I did. I went to college for 5 years. In the evenings, my professional career in music had already begun. I was already composing music for commercials and things like that. And at the end of 5 years, I got my degree. I took the certificate, went to my father, gifted it to him, and I told him that I'm not going to practice even for a single day. And that is what started off my morning to evening musical career. So I became a full-time musician after that.
Well, despite my appearance, I do not have Indian parents. No, but my parents also were immigrant parents. They were very supportive. My brother was an actor and a playwright in high school, and I played music, and they were very supportive. But they said, "Hey, you can do whatever you want to do in life. Just make sure you get a profession." And my brother and I are like. Pfft. And then my brother goes to medical school and ruins it for both of us. So I went to law school as well, and. He is a practicing child forensic psychiatrist, and I'm, a restless creative over here. But I did go to law school. I did pass the bar exam. All this. I'm still active in the bar. I'm a member. But tell me this, because I think this is a really interesting question for most people. And we are going to get to your new album with Stewart Copeland. Everyone should check it out, by the way. Lots of cool videos, lots of cool music. We're going to get there. But I love to know where people came from. Obviously, it's going to be the perspective is a bit biased because you went through the schooling. Do you are you glad you went through that schooling and some of the things you took from that, or do you wish you just would have skipped those 5 years and gone directly to music?
See, one always looks at a silver lining that, maybe it was not all a waste of time, going to college for 5 years and doing a degree that I would never use. So the silver lining obviously is that, I had all the social interactions and, actually, I think I would have definitely benefited out of the discipline of going to college for 5 years. But of course, at the end of the day, I don't blame my father for forcing me to do that degree and wasting 5 years of my life when I could have had a better musical education. Simply because I understand that he was driven by fear, like most parents. Fear of me starving to death, fear of me not being successful, fear of what he would tell his relatives as to what his son does for a living. Things like that, So those are things that drove him. Whereas for me, it was all about passion and my love for music. But, I cannot help thinking that what if I was fearful? And after I got that degree in dental surgery, I decided to get into that profession just like your brother did. Imagine if I was fearful that, okay, let me start a clinic and let me go to the clinic from 9 to 5. And in the evenings, I can do music because if I do this whole clinic thing, at least it's a traditional career path and I'll end up making some amount of money. So I would go to my clinic from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I would be very frustrated. I would be a very frustrated professional. I would be treating patients. I would be doing all these, tooth extractions and drilling holes into people's teeth. And all that I would be thinking about is when can I go back home and play on my piano or, compose some music. So in that kind of a situation, would you like to have come to me for some kind of a surgical procedure? I mean, so that's it. So I'm really glad that I wasn't fearful, and I sort of jumped into the deeper end of the swimming pool, and and just found my way out through music, and and I decided not to practice even for a single day, and I decided just to jump into music, and so I'm very grateful that I did that.
I love that. It reminds me also of our mutual friend Peter Diamandis. Peter graduated Harvard as an MD, and the president of medical school said, "I will let you graduate only if you promise me you will never practice medicine because you are not interested in this ever." And so that's how Peter graduated, right? So.
Wow, I did not know about that story because that was the exact same story that I have.
Really?
What happened for me is that in my final year, we had a subject called oral surgery where, for the final exam, they give you a patient and, who's got a certain, who requires a certain surgical procedure. And you have to do that in order to pass. So the patient that I had gotten, I opened his mouth and I realized that I had no idea what was wrong. And so I went, it was something that I hadn't studied because I did not realize it was important for the exam. So I just sat back and I decided not to touch the patient because I did not want to ruin his life. And the professor over there told me that, Ricky, why don't you at least try? So I said, I'm not going to ruin this guy's life. So I just sat down, and at the end of it, my professor told me that we are obviously failing you, so you're going to have to repeat a year. And that is when I went to my professor and I explained to him that I'm not going to be a dentist. You know it, because I was already in the papers at that time and I was already a successful musician. So I told him that, I'm not going to be a dentist. All that you're going to do is waste 1 year of my life. So why don't you just let me go through? So the professor actually made me swear that, that I'm not going to be a dentist, and then he allowed me to pass.
Well, so that's Peter's story as well. I will say on the other side of things, my brother loves what he does. I think the world's a better place because there's not many people willing to delve in to that many types of problems that people are dealing with that are not physical, not visible. So God has a plan. That's the good news. Now,
yes.
Here's an interesting thing, probably because I'm not nearly as talented as you in music. No. I can comfortably say that, like, very truthfully, and that's not pandering.
Absolutely.
Like, do you feel like, I feel like music is the hardest business in the world. I really do. Do you feel not that way? I mean, you've had amazing success. I just interested in your perspective on that.
No, definitely. I 100% agree with you that music is the toughest business in the world. Simply because of the way that musicians have to constantly pivot, like from the gramophone days to CDs to cassettes, and then stream, and then MP3 downloads, then streaming. Nobody actually knows how to monetize your music. Nobody has got the answer. And you can watch like 100 seminars, you can go to 100 conferences, and and still you don't have the answer. And right now during this pandemic, it's obviously made things much worse because for the last 4 or 5 years, I realized that, okay, this is how I have to monetize my music. I gain popularity through streaming platforms, and then I go ahead and I book myself for gigs and I make money through touring. And that's what I was doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And like, for example, in 2019, I did 70 concerts in 13 countries. And now that's out of the window. And that's going to be out of the window, in and out of the window for about the next few years, I'm pretty sure, because the pandemic is going to keep coming in waves. So basically now we are back to square one, and we are wondering that how the hell do we make money out of music? So music is, in fact, the toughest business, just because there is no traditional pathway to actually making money, even if you've got the best product out there.
Yeah, and so you've done a lot of artistic music, and you've done a bunch of commercial music. How do you treat those differently in your mind, or just tell me the way you approach both those things? So you've done a lot of work for commercials and films, which is essentially, not that it's not creative, it certainly is, but it's music for hire typically. I imagine the commercials might even strike you a little bit differently than the films, but then there's like albums. So tell me about that.
So when I started off my career, I did a whole lot of commercials for television and radio. So in a span of about 13 years, I was quite successful. I did more than 3,500 of them. And I was working really, really hard, because I really wanted to prove myself. So there were days when I was doing 3 commercials a day. Like in the morning, I would get a brief to do a commercial in India. So I would wake up in the morning and an Indian client would call me up at about like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and I would start off work on that. I would wrap up that particular commercial by about 2 or 3 o'clock, and then somebody from Europe would call me up and schedule a recording that would go on to about 1 a.m. And then at about 1 or 2 a.m., somebody from Los Angeles would call me up, or somebody from from Canada would call me up, and and I would work on a commercial on that. So I was working multiple time zones, doing a whole lot of work. And at the end of 13 years, something really struck me actually, that because I was into a lot of social causes by then, and I was a very, very strong environmentalist, and I still am. It sort of struck me that these big brands have understood the power of music so much so that they're ready to spend a couple of $1,000s on me to actually create a piece of music for them to sell something, because they're always trying to sell something. And so they understood that music is such a powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but somehow for retaining that message in people's head. And that is when I decided that I want to explore the power of music, and I made a very strong commitment to myself. This was around 2014, that I would stop all forms of commercial music, and I would only create music on themes that I feel strongly about, and which is positive social impact, and especially in a country like India, and which is about about the environment and things like that. So that started off another journey of mine. But my commercial days, I absolutely love them, because I believe that that was a better music education than my actual music education, simply because I got to work with a different creative person every single day, and every day was a different challenge. Like yesterday, I would have made a Indian folk jingle. Today, I make a Celtic jingle. Tomorrow, I get to make a rap jingle. So I'm on my toes for every genre of music. I meet all these musicians from around the world, make all these amazing collaborations, and all these different forms of music started finding its way into my aesthetic. And that's why my music is so varied, because all these different genres of music. And it's also like a workout, that the more you work out in the gym, the better you get at it. And I believe that the more I was composing these short jingles, the better I was getting at composing. So I owe a lot of my music, my musical whatever, the little expertise that I have to my jingle days.
That's great. And then in 2015, you won a Grammy for your 14th studio album. You had 120 artists from all over the world, and you topped the New Age Albums chart for the top 10 position for 12 weeks. Tell me, did you know that album was going to be that good, that big going into it? Like, did you say, "Oh, I see an opportunity here," or was this just music you had to make? Where were you at during that time?
So the album itself, it's an album called Winds of Samsara, and it was a collaboration between me and a South African flute player. So when we met and decided to collaborate, we had come across a huge coincidence that I had just finished making a piece of music on my father of the nation, that is Mahatma Gandhi. And he had just finished making a piece of music on his father of the nation, that is Nelson Mandela. So the whole collaboration started just on these two pieces of music, because Mahatma Gandhi spent his formative years in South Africa, so he had a lot of South Africanness in him. And Nelson Mandela was heavily inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, so he had a lot of Indianness. So all this cross-pollination was going on with these different musical forms and ideas of peace, tolerance, and love. So that's why we decided to just collaborate on these two pieces of music. But then the collaboration extended beyond that, and we collaborated for 2.5 years, and we had an album ready. So what I love about that album is that the album was pretty much organically created, and it wasn't created with the intention of actually creating an album and selling it. And but we did have an album ready at the end of 2.5 years. So we released the album, and we knew it was a special album, and the album hit. And of course, we did market it very strongly. And the album hit #1 on the Billboard charts, as you mentioned, and it was in the top 10 for about 12 weeks. We won a whole lot of awards all over the world. And that ended up with us actually getting the nomination for the Grammy and then finally winning it. So that is an album experience that I'm really grateful for.
So let me ask you this. The day you won the Grammy, you wake up the next day. What's your first thought?
That life is pretty much still the same.
Exactly. And what's next, right? You go, what's next? What do I do to not only top what I've done before, whether it's award-winning or not, but how do I stretch myself? People ask me all the time, how did winning an Emmy change your life? And I would say, it validated me in a way, which in some cases is sort of sad that I felt I need that external validation, but I think we all have those thoughts. But then
we all do.
Yeah, but then the next thing was like, well, what's next? Because they don't give you a Grammy or an Emmy and $1 million. Like you already made your money typically on that thing a year ago, and what's next? And so that's I was just interested in your perspective on that. From there, you decided to start creating, well, a few years later, this album. Well, let me say this. Your emphasis on sustainability helped you earn a spot on GQ's Heroes list in 2020. I mean, you've been, obviously, this hasn't been a side thing where you're only going to work on projects that have social impact. And it talks about, in that article in GQ, it talks about you mentoring refugees from Afghanistan and Myanmar living in India in musical composition. Tell me about that. What is it like to work with people who have left everything behind? I have a couple experiences like that too, but just share those with us.
No, so what happened was that I, from the heart, am always an environmentalist. But India is a very complicated country, and like most developing nations, where where you have two kinds of problems. You've got survival problems and you've got thriving problems. So and the environment is always considered to be a thriving problem, and the more immediate, perceivably immediate stuff, like for example, violence and hunger and inequality, gender violence and hunger, these are considered to be more survival problems. So basically, if you go to a rural area in India where there is adjunct poverty, and a person who does not have money for food, and if you tell that person that, oh, let's make a better world for our children and our children's children, they're just going to get up and they're going to slap you. They're going to be like, what about me? I don't have money for my next meal, and I don't have electricity. I'm not productive after 6:30 in the evening when it becomes dark. I need all these things, and I need to survive. So, I don't care about the environment. I just want electricity, So the thing is that, so basically, that is when I started realizing, when I started meeting these people and understanding their problems, I started realizing that I cannot just be an environmentalist. I need to have a holistic approach towards getting towards my goal of working towards having a better future in terms of climate action, in terms of the environment, in terms of species. So one such thing is refugees, and I work a lot with the UNHCR, that is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, a 2-time Nobel Peace Prize winning organization. So what happened was that they were telling me stories about these refugees who are musicians in their own countries, and mainly because of their music, they were thrown out of their countries. Because of their artistic sensibilities and because of being musicians. So they identified 25 such musicians. And during the pandemic, I mentored them, online. For about 3 months, I mentored them. I would do 2 sessions per week. And at the end of it, I got so close to these amazing, amazing people. Like, for example, one of them had participated after America had its presence in Afghanistan. This guy from Afghanistan, he fantastic, amazing, soulful singer. He participated in the Afghan Idol show, a show which was started over there just like American Idol. And he won that show. And the Taliban, which was in hiding over there, they basically threatened him and his family. And he was forced to leave the country. He was forced to flee the country without anything, his whole family, because they were 100% sure that they would be killed like any minute. So he had to flee. And then, of course, India gave him a refugee status, and he's living in India. But he cannot even think about music right now because he's a refugee. So he needs to think about his survival. He needs to think about his food, his money, his family, and all of that stuff. So he's doing other work. So basically, all their stories are similar. And we did a song together. We released a song. And the last thing that I'd like to say about this particular project was that, when we were discussing what kind of a song we would create, I was keeping in mind that, it would be a very dark song about all the troubles and tribulations they faced, and, about the death and destruction and things like that. And all 25 of them, all that they were talking about is that we want to give hope to this world, We want to sing about, about shining our light to everyone. We want to sing about, that making this world a better place. And if we could survive all of this, then you can overcome any obstacle and things like that. And that is what really drew me to these people. And I'm still in touch with every single one of them, and, and I absolutely love them.
That's incredible work. The human spirit's an amazing thing, right? And to even try to fathom what those people go through is next to impossible. I was filming in February of 2019. February February. We're in 2021 now. February 2020, right before the pandemic
The pandemic.
shut everything down. I was filming in Iraq, and we were filming in Syrian refugee camps, and I was blown away by people were clearly in situations outside their control. In many cases, terrible situations. I mean, a lot of those refugee camps, I mean, terrible atrocities happen to human beings, and it's bad. But so many of the people there were so uplifted and bright. Like I had kids. I mean, it's like kids running around like with no awareness of what's happening around them, and it's just amazing how resilient the human spirit is. And I don't know about you, but when I think of places like Iraq or a Syrian refugee camp, I'm afraid. Like instantly my mind goes to like, sounds like I'm gonna die. And I gotta say, you know, wherever I've been with any type of people in the world, 99.9% of them are beautiful, amazing people. And it's such a nice reminder. It's unfortunate we can't travel to many places right now, but it's such a great reminder that humans are humans. You know, most humans want to engage with you. I mean, there's stereotypes that unfortunately we've all bought into. But I remember when I went to Paris for the first time, and I think it was 2019, filming with James Altucher, and I had a pretty set in my mind that I had to be prepared to be insulted a lot. I needed to be prepared for people to not be very welcoming. I had the most amazing time, really friendly people for the most part. There were a few people, but I'm sure, I mean, it's no different than New York City or a backwoods town here in Florida where there's always people. But people, I was just shocked how much I'd bought into the narrative that, you know, Parisians weren't going to be very nice. And I love hearing those stories of deep connection. I always encourage people, and it's a reminder for myself too, because we get busy in life. When an opportunity taps on your door like that to serve, just say yes. I mean, I've never had an opportunity like that didn't make my life exponentially richer. And from what you're saying now with these relationships, you have these people like, what an amazing blessing in your life. You know, we all think that when we're asked to serve in a capacity like that, we're going to be giving a lot, but we always end up getting the most. We always end up getting amazing gifts from it. So I'm sure you'd back that up. But I just say, if someone asks you to serve, it's like a celestial knock. Just trust me, it's worth saying yes. Would you agree?
No, 100%. Because in fact, our book of philosophy in India, that is the Gita, that says quite clearly that if a person who serves another person gains more than the person he or she has served. You know, so and that's true actually, because if you let yourself serve somebody else, you gain a lot out of it. You know, and there is no substitute for that intangible thing that you gain out of it.
I completely agree. And I also find when I don't know what to do next, even in the beginning of the pandemic or whatever, if I just stop doing what I was doing and serve someone else, it changes my entire mindset. And usually other answers come to me. And I've also found when you just show up and serve, opportunity abounds because people see the real you, and I mean truly serving, not serving for gain, just truly serving. Then gain does come to you. So it's interesting how that works. All right, finally we're going to get to Divine Tides with Stewart Copeland of the Police, incredible drummer. By the way, I know you play a lot of different instruments, but give me sort of your main instruments and maybe where you started, so we understand a bit about your background.
So when I started off in school, it was sort of like, 50% between, the keyboard and the guitar, because I started off as being a self-taught musician. And then later on, when I got into dental college, that is when, I decided that since music is anyway going to be a profession of mine for the rest of my life, I would like to overcome potentially a handicap that could affect me later on in my life. So that's why I took a formal education in music. So I took a distance education course with the London School of Music that I would do in the evenings of my dental college. And in addition to that, I also took up a course in Hindustani classical music, that is the Indian form of classical music. So that I had a background in both these amazing musical forms. Then after that, since I became a composer, my main instrument became, like how it becomes, the keyboard and the computer, so that became sort of my main instrument, and that is my main instrument till now. But when I'm performing on stage, it's usually a bunch of keyboards all connected to a bunch of computers, and that's basically what I'm performing on stage. So I'm performing keyboard lines, also triggering various stuff and things like that. And Yeah, so that's basically my main instrument. Yeah.
That's great. All right. So, how did this album with Stewart Copeland come about? Tell me about that.
So, uh, so after the Grammy-winning album that is Winds of Samsara, I've always been wanting to make a follow-up to the album, and it has been on the back of my mind. But my touring schedule has been pretty relentless. So, and even though I did albums in the last 5 years, I did quick albums. But the thing is that nothing was sort of like my magnum opus, like an album which I really spent time on, and I really worked hard on, and I didn't want this particular album, which was a follow-up to Winds of Samsara, to be a quick album. I wanted to be an album that I would really craft and an album that I would be super proud of. So I did not have the time to record it, but I had a lot of ideas and thoughts that would go into the album, a lot of melodies and things like that. So then, of course, in 2020, last year, the pandemic hit, and I was forced to be in this studio, which I'm sitting down in right now, for an extended period of time. And that is when I remembered my collaboration with Stewart Copeland in 2016. I did one song with him, but I could not actually interact with him for that song because we interacted with each other through artist managers. And it was literally me just sending him the tracks and him recording drums and sending it back. And I didn't need to further interact with him because the drums were perfect. I couldn't find a fault in the drums that would require me to speak to him again. So, so I mustered up the courage and I got in touch with him again, and I told him that that I would love to collaborate with you on a whole album. And he asked me to send him the music. I sent him the music, and he loved it. And he said that it's an opportunity for him to pull out all these various ethnic instruments that he's collected for the last like 30 or 40 years of traveling all over the world. And he said that I've got all these instruments, and they're so much fun to play on, like the Balinese. What do you call that? Seng seng, and his crotales and his tongue drum and various ethnic timpanis and China bells and things like that. So he said that it'll be fun for me to pull out all these things and finally mic them and actually play these instruments on a project. So that's what he did. We spent about half a year collaborating with each other and recording this album, and he co-wrote all the songs with me. And that is how Divine Tides came out to be. And of course, we filmed music videos and all of that stuff. And he was an absolute pleasure, and it was an absolute honor to work with him. And it was like a masterclass, working with him.
What do you want people to get from this record? Like, obviously, you filmed you have video from the Himalayas. What do you want to come out of this when people? First of all, people need to go check it out. It's on all the streaming services, right? So sort of everywhere you can listen to music, and then there's videos on YouTube. So go check it out, Divine Tides. What do you want this to inspire people to? What sort of action?
So I've always believed that there are two ways to bring about action in people. With all the problems that we face on our planet, whether it's environmental problems, climate change, or whether it is society problems like gender inequality, as I mentioned, or poverty or hunger. I think that the biggest threat that all of us face is the constant thought that that somebody else will make a difference. We're always waiting for governments to make a difference, for intergovernmental bodies, for corporations to make a difference. But the truth is that that what we need right now, the need of the hour, is behavioral change, and and changing our own behaviors and making small incremental changes within our own lives. And the problem is not that we are all evil people and we don't want to change. It's just that we haven't empowered ourselves to believe that these small tiny changes that we make within our own lives will actually make a difference. So, and also the kind of narratives that governments give out, that we have to create zero poverty, we have to create zero hunger. So when a common person listens to this, the immediate thought is that, whoa, how can I bring about zero poverty? How can I bring about zero hunger? That's like for bigger people and leaders to bring about. But I think the governments and people need to simplify these messages, where people understand that, zero poverty means just share, and don't be selfish, and zero hunger means that don't waste food, and don't overconsume and things like that. But anyway, so that's what my music has always been about. It's not about shaming people into action. Which is also a good technique for getting action done. But I believe that positive reinforcement is always better, because as a Senegalese philosopher once said, a person called Baba Diom, that we as humans will only protect things that we love. So our idea is to make everyone fall in love with the natural world, so that hopefully through that love we'll conserve, protect, and sustain. So coming to my music, every song has got a different topic, and every song has got a different idea. Like the one song that we have about the Himalayas, it's basically just a tribute to the beauty of the Himalayas, and it's an ode to the Himalayas, and sort of like a reminder that the Himalayas, every single human being on this planet is directly or indirectly depending on the Himalayas for their sustenance, because the Himalayas has the third highest amount of glacial water in the world after the North and South Pole, and also the Himalayas has the greatest rivers in the world come out of the Himalayas, and there are 7 or 8 countries that the Himalayas pass through, and so basically that's why I wanted to showcase the beauty and the spiritual angle of the Himalayas, because I believe spirituality is a very good way to get people to protect things. So and then we've got like various songs about various different topics. Like there's the Western Ghats in India, which is known to be the lungs of the planet, just like how the Indonesian rainforests are and the Amazon rainforests are. But people do not talk much about the Western Ghats because it's highly undocumented, that particular region. And filmmakers are not easily permitted in there, and so very little is known. But it's said that the number of species that are endemic to the Western Ghats is equal to the number of species that are endemic to the Amazon. So that's the number of amazing species that are only available in the Western Ghats than anywhere else in the world. So we created a song called Mother Earth, and we actually showcased the amazing species of the Western Ghats through that music video, which is going to be releasing soon. So that is basically the whole album, that every song has got an important topic that we wanted to speak about, but through love, and not through shaming people into action.
Absolutely love it. Well, everyone should make sure they check it out on YouTube, on Spotify, Divine Tides with Ricky Kej, Stewart Copeland, and then follow Ricky on all the good socials. Feel free to please follow us, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Now to Next. Like it, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Ricky, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. And I have to say that it was an absolute honor and a pleasure to be interviewed by you, because, as you know, I'm a fan of your movies, and I think you do a fantastic job when it comes to highlighting important social causes and highlighting, the human spirit, basically.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for coming on. And I will see you. I'm sure I will see you soon. Take care, everybody. Hey, Nick Nanton here, and thanks for tuning in to Now to Next. I want to make sure you don't miss a single episode of this show on YouTube. So before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.